hearing from Ashleigh Bedersen. Ashleigh Bedersen's fiction has been featured in the Kenyon Review, the Iowa Review, A Strange Object, and elsewhere. Her story, Small and Heavy World, was a finalist for both the Pushcart Prize and the anthology Best American Short Stories. She holds an MFA in creative writing from the University of Pittsburgh. She just completed her first novel and can occasionally be spotted in Austin theater and film projects. Please welcome Ashleigh Bedersen.
Thank you for that sweet intro. And thank you guys for coming out. It's a bigger crowd than I thought would be here. No offense to anyone. Sorry, Sarah. So just to give really brief context, my novel, I'm going to be reading an excerpt from my novel. The novel is about an 11-year-old girl growing up in rural Louisiana, and it's also about a little bit about her family history and the sort of cycles of abuse and the various iterations of abuse that appear in each generation of her family. So this particular chapter that I'm going to read is called The Crocodile, and it is the story of the main character, Sunshine Turner. Her grandmother, Catherine, passes on this fictional story that ends up being something that each kind of character in the succeeding generations latch onto as a way of kind of coping with what's happening to them, if that makes sense. So this is Catherine telling the story of the Crocodile Bride. So this is chapter 4, The Crocodile. Fingertip, the 1950s. Catherine Turner began the story in the yellow house. Her children curled tight against her body, one on each side. Her girl, 4 years old, with red, curly hair after her own. Her boy just turned 6, with dark hair like his dad's. Story time was in one of the twin beds in the room her children shared. For some reason, John Jay did not ever interrupt this particular ritual. Often enough, he wasn't home for it at all. All around, the green wallpaper with the daisies strewn across it. She had picked it herself, papered the walls herself, with her soon-to-be firstborn curled inside her belly. At story time, the green and the tendrilled flowers surrounding them made Catherine feel they were inside a fairy tale. A very long time ago, Catherine began, deep in the forest, was a place called the Black Bayou, and in this bayou lived a very large, very old crocodile. Nobody knows how a crocodile came to be in this part of the world. There are no other crocodiles here, of course. Alligators, yes, but crocodiles are different, more frightening. In the Black Bayou, this crocodile was larger and more ferocious than even the biggest alligators, and he was very lonely. Why was he lonely, Billy asked. Because he didn't love anybody, Catherine said. Now, shh. The Black Bayou was old as the sea and its water black as oil. All around it, the woods were green and wild, with cypress trees taller than any castle. In some places, the ferns grew so thick on the forest floor that children were known to disappear inside of them, never to be seen again. In the summer, swarms of horseflies blotted out the sky, and snakes coiled in the shade of the sawgrass. And there were black bears and red wolves and wild boars with quick tempers. Of course, the crocodile was never in danger. He was the king, and he ruled the black water and the forest that cupped the bayou like the palm of a hand. He had cracked, yellowed, blade-like teeth. His hide was a muddy green. The plates along his back were thick and impenetrable. He gobbled up wooden boards punched through with rusty nails as though they were fresh-baked biscuits. Countless fishing boats and cargo barges, their captains and crew, their wives and children, attempted shortcuts through the bayou, only to find themselves lost forever to the crocodile's cavernous belly. When from time to time some arrogant hunter or another shot at the crocodile, the musket balls only lodged themselves in his hide like cloves in a Christmas orange, and caused, at worst, a mild rash. Bones and treasures, the wares of merchants and pirates and thieves, piled up inside of him. Jewels and pearls and gold watches, diamond rings and gold-plated spoons. The crocodile began to develop a taste for these delicacies. He liked the cold metals that clinked pleasantly against his teeth. He enjoyed the smoothness of pearls as they slid down his throat. And he liked, it must be said, the crunch of human bones. Those travelers who escaped with their lives, though rarely all of their limbs, warned others of the Black Bayou. Travel by land, they cautioned, for a great beast lurks and he'll eat you whole. You'll live out your days in the dark of his belly. So it was that eventually people stopped passing through the Black Bayou at all. Villagers kept their distance. Native tribes hunted elsewhere. Merchants took the long route to the city. Without the riches and human bones and limbs and barges he'd been so greedily consuming, the crocodile's enormous appetite was left abruptly unsatisfied, and so he began to eat up the world around him. He swallowed the palmettos that spiked the shoreline, the lily pads, the snapping turtles, a wagon wheel encrusted with rust and small snails. He swallowed whole families of alligators. Then he chewed his way through their marshy den, teeth gnawing through the mud as though it were chocolate cake, licking his lips in what, each time, was only a brief moment of satisfaction. The more he ate, the hungrier the crocodile became. In one single day, he ate a fallen, waterlogged tupelo, beginning at the algae-slick branches, munching his way through the softened trunk, and finally slurping up the wet, mossy roots like noodles. When fog rolled in each night, he ate the low-hanging clouds. He ate the muddy shoreline, biting off chunks of red earth, and he ate the oaks and the pines and even the huge old cypress. Always, he found himself hungry again. The Black Bayou grew wider and deeper as the crocodile ate more and more, and he would have kept eating, would have eaten straight through the entire forest until he had no home left, until his world was all treeless water and great big sky, had the girl not arrived. She stood on the shore one summer morning as though already home. Her simple white dress was torn to the knees and her feet were bare. She wore her dark hair in 2 long braids, and her skin was the color of milky coffee. Her bare arms were bruised. A fresh cut ran across one cheek. The sun hadn't yet risen over the tree line, and pink clouds stretched across the sky. What an easy morning meal this girl would have made, had the crocodile not felt something strange and unfamiliar stir in his lonely crocodile heart. The crocodile, who was inexperienced in love, but very experienced with intimidation, blurted out, "Don't you know I could eat you whole?" "But you won't," said the girl, and apparently certain of her words, she walked straight into the water, right up to the crocodile. She stood before him, waist deep. Her white dress ballooned around her. Instead, she said, "You'll let me fetch your heart from your belly, and it will build me my home, and no one will ever hurt me again." "Build you a home?" sputtered the crocodile, quite genuinely confused. "With my own heart? Look at me, girl. Look at my teeth." He bared his teeth for her. "Look at my jaws." He opened his jaws for her, then snapped them shut again. The force blew wisps of hair back from her temples. "I could eat a house, but I cannot possibly build you one." "You won't build it for me," she said. "I'll bury your heart in the ground, and a house will build itself on top of it." "And what will you give me in return?" asked the crocodile. "Many things," said the girl. "Pearls?" asked the crocodile slyly, hopefully. "Rubies? Emeralds? A barge full of human bones?" His mouth watered at the thought. "I'll give you the gift of my hands," said the girl. And before the crocodile could argue, she placed both of her hands on top of his large, lumpy crocodile snout. She closed her eyes. The girl's hands were small but warm, and felt on his hide like how jewels and bones and flesh tasted in his mouth. They felt sweet, like rain or like the smell of pine trees after the sun had warmed them. When the strange girl took her hands away, he could still feel their warmth and their taste and their smell. And all at once, the crocodile was no longer hungry. As though under her spell, the crocodile opened his jaws wide so that she might crawl inside. When she walked back out again, the girl carried in her arms the crocodile's heavy heart, red and warm and beating. As she promised, she took the crocodile's heart into the forest and buried it deep in the earth. The crocodile had never before noticed his own heartbeat, but now he could hear its rhythm from underneath the forest floor. When the girl finally arrived back at the bayou shore, it was late afternoon. She was covered in sweat and dirt, and her long black braids were loose and untidy. The bruises that had ringed her arm, however, had almost disappeared, and there was a pale scar where the cut on her cheek had been. "Do you see?" said the girl, panting. "See what?" asked the crocodile. "My house, just there." And she pointed through the forest to where the crocodile could make out, sitting upon a shallow ridge, a little red house. The crocodile could see it through the leafy trees, a house as red as the heart buried beneath it. "I'll be safe here," she said, and she turned to the crocodile and smiled. "Does she still live on in the Black Bayou?" Billy whispered, his cheek hot against his mother's bare arm. On Catherine's other side, Lou had fallen asleep. Is the crocodile heart still beating? Oh yes, said his mother. Oh yes. If on that day any local had ignored what they had heard about the ravenous crocodile, about his bottomless appetite, and dared to visit the Black Bayou, if they had been watching the shore from behind the green veil of forest, their nose filled with the sweet scent of cypress, they would have seen this. Standing before the enormous crocodile, a small, black-haired young woman with milky coffee-colored skin, the hem of her white dress trailing behind her like a wedding gown. No one knows what, if any, vows were exchanged after the girl buried the crocodile's heart. All that's known is that there in the red house, the girl settled down, and it's there that she, with the crocodile ever nearby, with his buried heart beating on, still remains.